Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so sorry. We had a bit of a tech issue with the sound as we started. So I'm going to go through that again. Welcome, everybody, to a little window into the wild with Africam and Wild Earth. My name is Maxine Gaines. Really excited to join you all this afternoon and looking forward to a great afternoon of chatter together. Please remember that it is live and interactive, so I'd love to hear from you. Send through any questions and comments to our website or via the various channels, YouTube. We would love to hear from you all. And we have started the afternoon in Thorny Bush. Lovely to see these two species together at the watering hole. Sometimes they can be a little bit intolerant of one another at waterholes. Elephants tend to sometimes chase buffalo away, make them wait while the ellies drink. But this afternoon's been a fairly peaceful process by the looks of things. Looking at the herd that I'm seeing here, it looks like mostly males. It could be the back end of a bigger herd of females that's already visited the water and moved on. Sometimes these males bring up the rear and spend a bit more time around the water and then kind of move to catch up with the females. The old bull in the foreground here. Good afternoon, Lorraine. Yes, it's great to be back. I've had a bit of a break from Live at the Waterhole for the last week or so. So good to be on again for a little bit. I always feel like it is just such a very special window into the wild that we can sit here in our homes and watch what's going on in live time. Very, very special. Good afternoon, Penelope Kenyon and Kim Faustino. Lovely to have you on board with us this afternoon. These two are having a fairly civilized, by the looks of things, civilized little tussle for strength that hasn't got very serious as yet. Penelope Kenyon, you saying that Serendella is becoming a favorite waterhole. Funny, whenever I hear the word Serendella, when I lived up in East Africa, there was a lodge up there called Serendella. So I always think of Serendella as being up in Kenya, but obviously this is not. This is Serendella in Thorny Bush, and it is a beautiful waterhole. I love the tambuati trees there. You can see how distinctive they are with their beautiful red leaves. And yeah, it is a special place. Actually, those look like they could be jackalberries. Jackalberries also get red leaves at a certain time of the year. I'm just trying to see the bark. The bark is what is a giveaway. I think I may be right. I think it could be. Oh, no, the bark. Just the general shape of the tree looks a bit more like a tambuati. The jackalberries tend to be more spreading, but both of them have red leaves around about this time of the year. It's quite chilly where I am at the moment, but it looks like the buffalo are kind of grouping together in little pools of shade. So I'm wondering how warm it is there. Okay. That is definitely a tambuati tree. Looking at the bark. The bark is very different to the jackalberry bark. So thank you for that, Zumi, for focusing on the bark. Oh, listen to those guinea fowls. They're not happy about something. Could just be that the elephants or buffalo maybe kind of shooed them on, and they might have reacted to that. But often when I hear guinea fowl alarming like that, I look for birds of prey. Oh, that looks like it could be a yellow-billed oxpecker sitting on the buffalo there, which is always lovely to see. They're not as common as our red bills. Vivette, welcome to Live at the Waterhole. I see you say it's morning for you. Okay, the rest of us it's the beginning of the afternoon. So you must be to the west of us somewhere in the Americas, I would assume. Lovely to have you on board with us, though.
Now this leopard that we're looking at is known by the name of Hlalamba.
At Wild Earth, we believe every story has the power to create change. That's why we've launched the Wild Earth Impact Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to conservation and social impact. By showcasing conservation stories, we can change lives, protect nature, and empower communities. We have partnered with Empowers Africa to accept tax-deductible donations from US donors. Your donation will help fund critical programs that support our mission. Join us and be part of the change.
Always think of Simon Matabula, who has sadly passed on, but one of the most incredible Shangaan trackers that I had the privilege of working with, who always loved his yellow-billed oxpeckers. Really just see how busy they are. You just wonder how many ticks these buffalo would have on them if it wasn't for the work of these oxpeckers. Okay, so we're going to head over to the Eastern Cape now to Founders Lodge, where we've got a really interesting species out of water. Yeah, that male is courting the female, and I don't know if you managed to see how he lifts his front leg. One, can you hear me? Okay, sorry everyone, we're having some sound issues. Sorry everyone, if you can hear me, just a little bit of patience while we try to sort out our sound issues. Okay, it seems like everyone can hear me, so let's hope that it's all sorted. Sorry about that. Not quite sure what's going on. But yeah, that was really interesting to see how the sable bull was courting that female. Typical of many antelope species, the way they lift their front legs like that and almost paw at the female. in order to court them, and then obviously smelling to check if they are actually an estrus or going to be receptive. And this is a youngster here now, possibly a youngster belonging to that female. He might just be keeping a distance because the bull is there. But it looks very young. It looks like it um, might still belong to that female who may just be coming into estrus again now. I love sable antelope. They are just so striking, so beautiful. I definitely think this little one belongs to that female. He's staring off in the direction of where she disappeared to. Like, Mum, you leave me behind. What's going on? Always feel very privileged to see sable antelope. They are an antelope that in many parts of, or in many protected areas, are not um, in great numbers. Either their numbers are declining, the Kruger National Park's sable antelope population is in decline, and in many other areas, the population seems to be declining. So, always very special to see sable antelope in good numbers. Warthog doesn't seem to be that sure about the sable. Shame, little one. You need to go find your mama. They are not solitary antelope, so this little one will definitely want to join up with a herd. Sorry about that. The feed froze there, so we are now up at Old Donyo in Kenya, which is probably, I would think, my favorite waterhole of all. I love being at this waterhole. Oh, yeah, pokes a little giraffe's head behind the ellies there. I didn't even notice that he was there. And as usual, the insect life here is just phenomenal. I think last time we saw this waterhole, one ton came for a visit, so that would be lovely to see him again. Always lovely elephants here, though. There seem to be a few giraffe in the background there, waiting their turn. And some lovely plain zebras coming for a drink. They probably, the giraffe and the zebra, I'm sure, are going to have to wait for the elephants to have their fill. Yes, Lorraine, there are always amazing butterflies and birds at the waterhole. I just love it. Didn't see what that elephant was chasing away there, but I'm assuming it was either a zebra or a giraffe that was trying to come to the waterhole from the left.
Join me, Danielle Carstens, in Mashatu, Botswana's land of giants. With over 1,000 elephants, leopards in nyala berry trees, and exclusive access to photographic hides, this is a wildlife photographer's paradise. I'll be there photo guiding you throughout, providing hands-on training and tips. Let's capture striking images together in one of Africa's most rewarding reserves. I would love for you to join me.
South Africa's wild places are closer than you think because Federal Airlines brings them to you. From the calm of our Fed Air Lounge to the smooth boarding of our trusted fleet, we take care of the journey so you can enjoy the adventure. Our flights go beyond the ordinary, connecting you to South Africa's most remote and extraordinary locations. Federal Airlines, your gateway to the South African wild. Step into the heart of Africa from the comfort of your home.
Female leopard tracks over here.
Join our expert guides for a live 3-hour safari where every moment is real, unscripted, and unforgettable. Ask questions,
Animals rely on their senses.
share your thoughts, and be part of the experience as we explore together. Safari Live.
Out here, every wild moment counts, and as a Wild Earth explorer, you won't miss a thing.
Incredible.
Watch the Wild Earth channel ad-free 24/7 and rewind if you want to catch something again. Enjoy behind-the-scenes videos, fireside chats, and early access to travel offers. The best way to stay connected and be part of the Wild Earth family.
Moment. So let's go and see what is happening. How? Always seems to be What a beautiful waterbuck he is. I wonder what startled him there. He's definitely having a good look at something that gave him a bit of a fright, so I'm wondering what that could be. Given the fact that he was standing in the water, I'm wondering if there was a crocodile coming towards him, or whether he's actually looking at something outside of the water. Definitely very alert and very attentive to something off to the left. There's a red, looked like a red knob boot in the foreground there. What could have startled him? I don't see anything obvious that it could have been. Penelope Kenyon, you're saying he's very brave with 3 or 4 crocs around. Yes, I was thinking the same thing, and I'm just wondering whether it wasn't a crocodile that got him moving like that. I don't see any obvious sign of crocs in the water. But you wonder, when he's standing in the water, I suppose he can sense vibrations and movement in the water against his skin. So perhaps it wasn't something that he saw. Maybe he actually felt the movement of the water and decided to, oh, there's a croc. But that's not in the direction that he ran from, so he wouldn't have been responding to that. That croc looks very sedentary as well. He's still very focused. I think he saw something. He doesn't seem to be looking down at the water. He's looking off to the other side. Very interesting. Here's some spur fowls alarming there. There could be something moving around in the thicket on the other side of the waterhole. Maybe he caught a glimpse of it. The birds all look fairly peaceful. Oh, I think we've got some Ellies at Tembe, so let's head over to Tembe and see what they are up to. I always love having a little look in at Tembe. Oh, lovely herd come down to drink. Look how much greener it is than Tau. Typical northern KwaZulu-Natal. Gosh, that elephant on the right is a little bit outgunned by the big chap on the left. Not sure that he should be challenging the big boy. I think he may be regretting the challenge now, because the big boy is definitely seeing him off. Seems to be a grey heron on the side of the water over there as well, just patiently waiting for some fish. That boy, what is he doing, going down on his knee like that? I wonder if it was accidental. He almost looked like he may have tripped. So interesting to see the way he draped his trunk over the back of that elephant like that. Whenever I see an elephant drape their trunk over their tusk like that, I know that they have a little bit of attitude. It's always something I try and keep a lookout for when I'm driving around elephants, and give them a little bit more of a respectful distance when you see them doing that. Can be a bit of displacement behavior. Um, Animal lover, you're asking if elephants have the closest bonds out of all the herbivores. Gosh, I wouldn't say so. Even animals like rhino, a female rhino will often stay together with her calves throughout a lot of her life. They might not be in as big herds as elephants are, but they do keep quite close bonds with relatives. Just trying to think what other herbivores would have as close bonds. I mean, elis are incredible in the social structure that they have and the bonds that they have. Um, then I think of primates, gorillas would be herbivores. Their social structure is very, very complex and the family's incredibly bonded. And that is the case with many different primate species that are herbivores. So I think elephants are a great example of a herbivore that has very, very close-knit family ties and very strong social bonds. But primates would be another really good example of species that do have similar kinds of bonds. Scotty K, you're saying these ellies look like they are having an indaba.
This is an unbelievable afternoon.
What does it take to handle the wild? Balance. Determination. Focus.
Yaku!
And gear that can take a beating so you don't have to.
My full name is Cedric Leslie Dold. I grew up mostly here in the Lowveld. I grew up here pretty much on the southern side of Kruger National Park, a place called Marlow Park, for most of my years. Something surprising about myself, I did play drums in a band for many years. Best sighting I presented, we found Palumba and the two cubs, and the cubs are just way big.
It is always so interesting to see this behavior play itself out at these waterholes. This chap in the foreground now was very respectful. Obviously, knows that the other chap is bigger than him and didn't want to get into any kind of altercation, so he just moved off quite smartly. Generally, that's what happens with elephants. They tend to know very well who's who in the hierarchy, and they don't really want to get into fights, so they'll be submissive to anyone that's more dominant than them. It's very rare that you see serious fights between elephants. I have seen them on the odd occasion. I have witnessed elephant fights that resulted in the death of the other elephant on 2 occasions, but that is quite rare. Normally they're very, very clever. They really know who's who and know who to avoid and how to keep themselves out of trouble. Okay, well, we're going to leave Tembe for a bit and go and link up with some more elephants at one of our other waterholes. I must apologize if you hear any weird noises in the background, but got some building going on next door. Here we are at Hwange. Hwange is a wonderful reserve to go and visit if any of you are planning on making a trip to Africa. One of my favorite reserves. I haven't been back there for many, many years, but it is really a very special place, especially for elephants. Again, so interesting to see how he's chosen the kind of dam, that concrete dam where there's obviously some cleaner water. And you can see the water, the more natural water in the background. Might be going to use that to do a bit of a mud bath, but drinking from the cleaner water in the concrete reservoir. Sure, he's going to splash himself now with some mud. Oh, maybe not. Maybe he just wants to move through. He looks like he may have had a bit of a mud bath already. There's parts of him that look quite dark. Ah, Mr. Elemental, you say that you are a member for 2 months from Australia, and you say Happy World Albatross Day. Wow. Thanks for that. I didn't realize it was World Albatross Day. An incredible family of birds that really need our protection, and many of them being quite endangered and quite negatively impacted by the massive fishing industries around the world. So thanks for the reminder that it is World Albatross Day. Some black-winged stilts over there. And our kind of constant companions at almost every waterhole, the Egyptian goose. Seems like the camera is, oh, look at the elephant chasing away the plover, sorry. Or was it the goose? Let's head over to camel thorn. This camera is, I think it is glitching a little bit. So we'll head over to camel thorn and see what's happening there. Right, so here we are in Botswana. Oh, it looks like is that a baby crocodile or is it a monitor lizard? Oh, there's quite a few big crocodiles there. I'm assuming the one on the left is probably a young crocodile. A little pod of hippos here. Some more Egyptian geese. I would be really surprised to come across a waterhole that doesn't have a resident pair of Egyptian geese. They seem to just be everywhere. Well, there's actually, I only saw the one, but there's actually two small crocodiles there. Difficult to know the size of them because obviously on the camera it's quite difficult to judge size, but they don't look very big at all. They look pretty young compared to the ones off to the right. Probably from the same batch. They look similar sized. Probably grown up in this little water hole and have yet to move off and find their own little spot. It's quite difficult for a young crocodile to move very far from where he was born because at that size they're quite vulnerable, and they need to wait to get a bit bigger before they go tracking off any long distances from where they were born. So you probably find that those two are from the same batch of eggs, haven't really moved particularly far from where they were born, other than within the water itself. Seems almost like a bit of a dugout or a cave in the bank there. I'm wondering what could have made that hole. It certainly looks like it was made by some creature. Penelope, can you say someone counted about 70 hippos sunning on the bank yesterday? Wow. They definitely don't look to be 70 in the water today, but they may have just moved a little bit further. Oh, one of my favorite sounds in the whole world. African fish eagle calling. It's definitely a pair calling to each other, which is very special to hear. Yeah, that's an interesting little dugout there. He's super fascinated to know what made that hole, but the tracks going in and out seem to suggest that perhaps a crocodile uses it. There seem to be crocodile tracks going right down to the water from there. So this Camelthorne farmstead, it's the first time I'm actually looking at this camera. I'm just looking on the map as to where it's placed. So it's kind of between the beautiful kind of inland, very lush Kavango Delta and the Ngari salt pans along a little riverbed that seems to run from the Okavango towards the salt pans. So I'm sure in summer this must be just the most incredible breeding ground for birds and really interesting spot. I've spent quite a bit of time up around the salt pans and the Okavango Delta. It's a fascinating place to go and visit. So you're asking if Homestead is in the north of Botswana. So I don't know if that would have answered your question, but it's further north. It's definitely more north than south, but it's not right up in the far north of Botswana. It's kind of central north. So if you look on a map of Botswana and you look at the
I feel it is a rosetted morning for us. So yes, let's see what we can find.
The Wild Earth Impact Foundation is a non-profit that uses the power of wildlife storytelling as a force for good. We create sustainable development projects that showcase conservation stories, empower people, and inspire environmental action. As a registered South African PBO, you can make a tax-deductible donation to the Wild Earth Impact Foundation. To find out more, visit our website.
My full name is Cedric Leslie Dold. The best driver at Wild Earth, it is me. I believe I'm the best driver. I think so because I've... best part of my job, I say, is just to try and look out for these animals, track them down. I love tracking animals. I love looking for, fresh tracks, and if you can find them, it's just at the moment of accomplishment. If I wasn't a presenter for Wild Earth, I would be the drummer for AC/DC.
Every month, something wild lands in your inbox. From rare sightings and behind-the-scenes secrets to expert stories, seasonal changes, and exclusive travel opportunities, the Wild Earth Journal is your free monthly mailer, packed with the magic of the wild straight from the field. It's fun, it's free, it's full of surprises. Sign up now on the Wild Earth website.
swimming gracefully through. And the water bug appears to almost be grazing on something that's growing under the water. I don't know if you noticed that. He wasn't drinking. The way he was moving his head, it was quite clear he was actually picking plants out of the water. Waterbuck do that. They're quite well known for grazing on grasses and grass relatives and sedges and things in the water itself. It's really interesting to see how deep he's dipping his nose there to get at whatever is growing in the water. So while the Tachi saying you totally agree about the fish eagle call, yeah, there is nothing quite like it. Then you're asking, don't they start to breed in July? Different parts of Africa, they breed at slightly different times. So Namibia, June, July is when they lay. So they would have started kind of building their nests before that. And then in South Africa, any time from March to August is when they would lay. So we are kind of smack in the middle of their laying time right now. So yes, they, that calling that was happening there. Just thinking, where were we? It was Botswana. So Zimbabwe, I'm just looking, Zimbabwe, the laying dates are April to June. I would imagine that Botswana would be similar in terms of the dates that they would lay. And then in South Africa, it's a little bit earlier, March to and then extends a bit longer, March to August. So yeah, we are definitely in the breeding season for those birds at the moment. Many birds of prey breed in winter. I think it just is easier on the chicks to be on the nest when the temperatures are cooler rather than with the baking sun on them. I'd love to know what plants this waterbuck is feeding on. Seems to be quite a lot of algae in the water, but I would be surprised if he was eating algae. I'm sure it must be some other water plant growing beneath the surface that he is munching on. Probably some kind of reed or sedge. See how much time he spends being vigilant, though. He is feeding, but as much time, if not more, than the time he spends feeding, he's actually looking around him, focusing with his eyes and his ears in all different directions. It's so important being vigilant when you are a herbivore of a particular size. If you compare his amount of time that he's being vigilant compared to the elephant, who really seems not particularly concerned about anything. And the impala as well in the background, constantly raising his head and looking around. Gosh, that elephant, the way he's throwing that, I'm assuming it's mud, into his face. He is kind of throwing it straight into his eyes. Doesn't look like the best strategy there. I wonder if it's coincidence that the impala is coming to drink very close to where the waterbuck is standing. I would imagine he maybe feels safer knowing that, oh, if the waterbuck's in the water there, there's probably not that much chance that there's a crocodile close by. Because he looked like he was coming down to drink right there. He's got all the space around this massive waterhole, but he seems to want to drink quite close to the waterbuck. Oh, maybe not. He's moving on. Erica, you say greetings from cold Cape Town. Yes, I believe Cape Town is cold. My husband was there yesterday. He said it was freezing. Durban's always... Oh, no, he is coming to drink. There we go. Durban's always a lot less cold than Cape Town in winter, thankfully. Okay, well, we're going to leave this water bucket. It doesn't look like the crocodile was after him. So I think we'll leave him to his grazing in the water and let's head over to Old Donyo and see what's happening there. Oh, wow. Looks like bellies have decided to share the water. That's amazing. Oh gosh, there's a big tusker there. Could that be? Could that be who I think it is? Definitely the zebras are in the way, but it looks like it could be 1 ton. Well, sadly, because there's so much going on here, but I think this feed is a little bit glitchy. So hopefully we can come back here, but let's quickly link to camel thorn. Gosh, there was a lot going on there. That was actually, I think it was also 1 ton that was visiting that waterhole. Yeah, always lovely to see hippos out of the water in the middle of the day, and it does seem like a fair amount of them. Um, Difficult to count just how many, but there's a lot of hippos lying in that little huddle. And this is something you do see a lot more commonly in winter than in summer. These hippos spending hours out of the water in the middle of the day. I think probably just trying to warm up in the sun. The water must be quite cold in the middle of winter. I know many people get surprised when they hear that Africa is so cold in winter, but it really is. I visited this particular area of Botswana on a camping trip many years ago in the middle of June, July, and it was some of the coldest I've ever been in my life, huddled in my tent in the Magadi Gadi salt pans. Really very, very cold. Gosh, there's a huge flock of birds that is moving around on the kind of cliff face there. I'm suspecting that just given the size of the flock that I saw, that it could be red-billed quellias, but I'm not 100% certain. I didn't get enough detail to be certain. But big flock of birds. Okay, well, we're going to head back over to Tembe as the hippos serenade us. And let's see if our elephant and Daba is still going on at the waterhole at Tembe. Oh, two beautiful woolly-necked storks. I always love seeing woolly-necked storks. Those beaks that are so huge, and some of these birds really don't look like they could be very precise. And yet if you watch a bird grooming itself with a big beak like that, they really manage to be so delicate with their feathers and quite precise about how they groom themselves. It always fascinates me. The beak itself really looks like quite a blunt tool, but they manage to use them so precisely. Beautiful big elephant there as well. I think that might be the same chap that was being quite dominant earlier, heading off into the forest. And do you say, do they ever break their beaks trying to catch prey? Gosh, it's an interesting question, Randy. I've never seen a bird break its beak trying to catch prey, but I have seen birds with broken beaks. Having worked in wildlife rehabilitation for a long time when I was in high school and through my varsity days, did come across birds with broken beaks, but I always assumed those were probably due to some form of, collision with a vehicle or, vehicle impact rather than because of prey. But I'm not 100% sure whether they would break a beak trying to catch prey. I think it would be unlikely that a stork would break its beak. I'm thinking of a kingfisher diving into water at quite a speed and making impact with the water and with whatever's below the surface of the water. There's probably more of a chance of a kingfisher physically breaking its beak while trying to catch prey than a stork would.
For years, we've shared virtual wildlife. Now, let's experience it for real. I'm Lauren Arthur, and I'd love to show you my amazing home here in the Greater Kruger of South Africa. This 5-night journey is an exclusive connection to my piece of untamed Africa. I live here in these gorgeous landscapes surrounded by epic wildlife. The wild is calling, so come and join me.
Welcome to Safari Spotlight. We'll be
And you pretend like you're a serviceman, eh?
Got no idea what's going on this reserve.
Expecting the unexpected.
Are we stuck down there?
What am I trying to do?
So we have another giant of Mabula.
That was incredible.
This is unbelievable.
It's going to be a spectacular afternoon.
see what's happening with our waterbuck in the water. And he's still in the water. No sign of the crocodile that was making his way towards him earlier. And he doesn't seem particularly concerned. Oh, there we go. He's pulled out a whole clump of whatever it is he is feeding on. I don't know if you saw that. Clump of something dragging out of the water with him. I'm fascinated to know what it could be. What plant he is having to kind of almost submerge his face into the water to get. Because waterbuck are generally grazers, so it's unlikely that that it would be algae. There's another clump of it, green, something very green. I wonder if it isn't algae. That would be really unusual. Start to wonder about his age and whether he's feeding there because the water plants are a bit softer than, similar to what elephants do when their teeth are getting worn down. Whether, it's just easier for them to feed on grasses and on softer plants growing along the water courses than to try and feed on their normal diet. And you just wonder about this chap, whether he is feeding on this soft material growing in the water for that reason. I'm struggling to identify the plant. It's quite tricky to know what it is he's feeding on. But it's something that's completely submerged because there's nothing growing on the surface of the water there. So it's something that's growing completely under the water, which is what's making me think that it might be algae. Kind of stringy bits hanging out of his mouth there. Kim, you're asking if the antelope are aware that there might be crocodiles in the water. Definitely. He would definitely be aware of the risks. And he is being quite vigilant and probably knows, where he can stand, where it's shallow enough that he would see a crocodile approaching. Doubt he would go into very deep water unless he had to. Gosh, that is so interesting. I'm still struggling to decide what it could be that he's feeding on. But yeah, he would definitely be aware of the risk of crocodiles, and I suppose would try and mitigate that risk as much as possible. But in the dry season, when, if you look at the banks of this waterhole, you can see there's not a lot of grass around. There are other plants growing, but very little in the way of grasses. And waterbuck are not browsers, they are predominantly grazers. They eat grass. And so there isn't a lot of food available for him around this waterhole. So he is forced to come and feed inside the water. And I have seen waterbuck at this hole particularly, in the water feeding on grasses that are poking out of the surface of the water. And then it's very, very clear to see that it is a grass, or a member of the grass family, which, your reeds and sedges and things like that. But this is different. This is something that is growing completely submerged. So I'm not entirely sure what it is. Paul, you're saying he's smart enough to hold his breath. I know I often think about that and think, these animals don't go for swimming lessons. They seem to just instinctively know what they need to do in the water. As humans have almost lost that. Although if you speak to some swimming instructors that teach very, very young children how to swim, I think if you put a baby in the water from a very, very young age, those instincts are still there. It was quite a fascinating field. I was always a little bit nervous with my two boys to put them in the water at that age, but I have read that very, very young babies do instinctively hold their breath in water. So sometimes when humans think they're clever, they actually unlearn a lot of the stuff that comes instinctively to them. That definitely looks like algae to me. I think he's feeding on algae.
This unfolds in front of you. I get to wake up every morning and go out there and look for cats. I get to create my everyday safari for myself. I grew up in the sort of central eastern suburbs of Johannesburg, fully qualified trails guide and a fully qualified nature conservationist. I love the wild places. I love being in the wilderness. It's probably one of the best jobs I've ever had and probably ever could have.
It definitely looks very similar to what I clean out of the fish pond. Well, not much competition either. There's not going to be many other herbivorous species that are going to do what he's doing, because he is a water adapted antelope. You know, he's evolved to be well adapted to going into the water and being around wetlands. Means you're not really going to find a wildebeest or an impala coming right into the water hole to feed like this. So he's also got less competition for that food through winter as the rest of the food disappears. So it's a very clever strategy. Feed in the water. Okay, well, we're going to head back to Serendella in the at Thornybush now and see what is happening there. We had some ellies there at the beginning of our show. Let's see if the ellies are still around. Different group of ellies, but the little one looks like he's learning how to use his trunk in the water. Smith Lapwing playing with his life there, darting in and out of the elephant's legs. Now they come straight there when the elephants have left, and I'm wondering if it's because the elephants disturb insects around the edges of the water, and then it gives the lapwings an opportunity to grab the insects that have been disturbed, because they head straight to the area where the elephants were. It's amazing how the species are so dependent on one another in ways that we only really realize when we start to do what we're doing now and just spend time observing. And then the kind of intricate web just becomes more and more intricate as you realize how species that are so distantly related to one another are dependent on one another in so many different ways. And just, disturbing or eradicating one species from a system like this can have massive repercussions through the whole system. And you start to understand that when you spend time like we are now, just watching what's happening and realizing the relationships that there are. I'm sure those lapwings are catching insects that have been disturbed by the elephants. So the elephants have helped them get a bit of a meal, even though the ellies do lose patience with them and chase them often. But they also end up providing for them, which is really quite special. Jessie, you're saying, have I ever been camping in the bush and been surprised by wild animals? Many times. many times. We love to camp in the bush. I've had elephants kind of touching the guy ropes of our tents on many occasions. While out camping, we've had mating leopards under the deck of a tent, where you kind of pitch your tent on a wooden platform, and had mating leopards underneath. Had lions walking through campsites before, hyenas. Yeah, the bush is full of surprises, and I love camping because I just feel like you really are more connected to the wilderness when you don't have all the bells and whistles and the kitchen sink with you. It's very raw and very yeah, just feel connected. So I love camping in the bush. Very, very special. I love the way young elephants flap their trunks around like that. It's so cute. How carefully she's going down, taking that step down from the. It's not a very big step, but she really was very, very careful the way she stepped towards the edge of the water there. I suppose, being as heavy as they are, they must often have edges of banks kind of crumbling beneath their feet, and so they learn very quickly that they've got to be quite careful on the edge. Carmen, you're saying it is a pleasure to watch. I agree. It's just so relaxing. I always say when you're in the presence of elephants, when you're close to them, they give off an energy that just is so calming. And I feel a similar sense now, just watching, even though it's on a screen, but just, being quiet for a bit and just watching their antics around the waterhole um, really just helps calm your soul. So it's quite incredible. Little baby looks like he's deciding whether he wants to go and cause trouble with the lapwing. But he thought better of it, rather go and get some milk from Mum. He was thinking about it though. Now he's having a nice suckle. And the lapwing making his way around again to where the elephants have just been. And David, you're saying you'd never get your wife in a tent in the bush if there's a chance of ants wandering in. There's a pretty high chance of ants wandering into most tents. Although some of my worst ant experiences are up in East Africa, where the what is the Maasai word for them now? Sufasu. Oh gosh, my brain's gone blank, but they are the real army ants that move in these thick columns of just hundreds of thousands of ants, and they really do bite quite painfully. And I've been standing on a few times on a walk in the bush, and suddenly you realize you're standing in the middle of a column of these ants, and by that stage it's too late because they are everywhere. And you wouldn't want a column of those to move through your tent at night. That would be a rather painful experience. The interesting thing with those ants, though, is if you stand just a meter away from them, you can watch the column go by quite happily. They're not actually, they're not going to turn and come for you. They're on their own little mission, and you can stand and watch them, just hundreds of thousands of these ants marching by in this wide column. And they really are quite fascinating, but you don't want to kind of unintentionally be in their path or kind of stand on the column without realizing it, because then you do get bitten. It's very, very nasty to suddenly have hundreds of these ants in your pants. But there is nothing quite like being in a tent in the bush, where you really feel like you are part of the wild, listening to all the sounds that come through the canvas so clearly, and just really feeling a sense of respect for the wild that you don't maybe feel when you're in a brick and mortar structure. You feel more humbled and more respectful of your surroundings, I think, when you're camping.
My name is Amy, and today we're going to be doing things a little bit differently.
At Wild Earth, we believe every story has the power to create change. That's why we've launched the Wild Earth Impact Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to conservation and social impact. By showcasing conservation stories, we can change lives, protect nature, and empower communities. We have partnered with Empowers Africa to accept tax-deductible donations from US donors. Your donation will help fund critical programs that support our mission. Join us and be part of the change.
Best sighting I've presented, I found myself with wild dogs. We chased the dogs around, chased them around. They ate an impala, we got the end of that. Then another impala went into Gowrie Dam down the road there, and the wild dogs went around. Eventually the impala came close to the bank, One wild dog went and grabbed it and then just pulled it out and just did what wild dogs do. It was an emotional experience, but it was very, very special.
This is what they call a shambi, a family, a whole herd of elephants.
But nature is beyond amazing. Nature is just everything.
We'd love to hear from you. Questions, comments about biology, Africa, safari.
She's using her tail like a monkey.
Some of you out there are brilliant at identifying hyenas.
Now, why do you think people have got this huge misunderstanding about reptiles?
Right in front of me there was the face of an astounded buffalo bull.
This is live and interactive, so everybody, if you have any questions and comments, please do send them through and let us know what you would like.
And this Ellie looks like he might be considering causing trouble with the buffalo. Let's hope not. The buffalo really is minding his own business. He's gone right to the other side of the dam. But it looks like this elephant is not wanting to share the water. Sorry, boy. Oh, the Ellie's moving you along. Gosh, this is an old, battered looking buffalo. Boris, you're asking if elephants cause trouble with the bigger animals as well. Yeah, I've seen them chasing rhino off. I've seen them causing trouble with hippos. Poor Puff. He just wants a drink. It's so interesting because sometimes you'll see elephants at a waterhole and they'll be quite happy to share with other species that are coming down to drink, and yet other times, for no apparent reason, they aren't. And this waterhole looks pretty big. They do get less and less happy to share when as the dry season progresses and the waterholes start to shrink. But this waterhole still looks pretty substantial. There's no real reason for them to want to move the buffalo along, other than just young elephant bulls trying to test their boundaries, test their strength. Now you see they're having a little bit of a tussle with each other. They're obviously just trying to figure themselves out, as young human males tend to do as well. Deb Davis, you're saying they can be bullies. Yes, exactly. He's enjoying a little bit of a mud wallow. You wonder how far he's had to come to get to the water this morning, or this afternoon, should I say, because he is very dependent on grass to eat, and there's not a lot of grass growing around this waterhole, and yet buffalo are also incredibly dependent on water. They need to drink daily, so he probably has to move a fair distance in the dry season to get from his grazing grounds to a place where he can drink water. And so to get to this waterhole where he's probably moved a long way to come here and then be bullied away from it by elephants is probably not what he feels like have happened to him today. There's a little terrapin in the water there. Typical buffalo behavior, the way they horn the mud like that. One of the theories as to why they do it is that it makes their horns look bigger. The horns just look more chunky and more robust and might just make either a predator or a potential, sexual rival think twice about picking a fight with him. Face. That nose is really working. He's obviously smelled something that he's quite interested in, and it almost looks like he's drawing the air into his mouth a bit as well. Not quite a phlegm response, but almost sucking air in to maybe get a better idea of the smell of it. Might be that another buffalo has urinated in the water there and he's just investigating that scent. It doesn't look very attractive to me. It looks really quite dirty. Obviously not a worry for these guys. Buffaloes are such difficult animals to read. If you look at him there now, is he feeling happy? Is he feeling nervous? Is he feeling sleepy, aggressive? Who knows? With all animals, they seem to have the most kind of unreadable expressions, which is what makes them in many guides' minds, quite a dangerous animal to encounter in the bush. Because for me, as a guide, it's quite important to be able to read the body language of the animal that you've encountered to see whether they feel relaxed with you or feel threatened. And it's very difficult to read the body language of a buffalo. Just looking at him there as he was staring up into the camera and just thinking, I have no idea what he is feeling right now.
I met this remarkable rhino bull, whose name is Samson, last year in a place of extraordinary beauty, history and story. I'm going back there to see him in October, and I think you should come with me to his mysterious mountain fastness.
South Africa's wild places are closer than you think, because Federal Airlines brings them to you, from the calm of our Fede lounge to the smooth boarding of our trusted fleet. We take care of the journey so you can enjoy the adventure. Our flights go beyond the ordinary, connecting you to South Africa's most remote and extraordinary locations. Federal Airlines, your gateway to the South African wild.
Can you hear that? The wild is calling.
Emily, you're asking how long are they likely to stay in that position for? So he could lie here for hours. I mean, I've seen crocodiles lie for so long that you almost start to wonder whether they're actually alive or dead. It just depends on the temperature. That's the main reason why he's probably out of the water at the moment, is to warm up. And once he's warm enough, he will then probably head back into the water and in order to hunt or look for, in the water hole like this, maybe he eats a lot of fish, so he would be hunting for fish. But they can spend hours and hours just lying in one position trying to warm up. I would imagine it's pretty cold at Tau at the moment, just judging by how cold it is in KwaZulu-Natal at the moment. Tau is much further inland and would be pretty chilly right now. So he's probably making the most of the sun's rays and just trying to get his body temperature up a little bit. He's moving around more than you'd expect from a crocodile who's thermoregulating. He seems to be looking at something off to his right every now and then, so something is bothering him. It's not quite as relaxed as I've seen most crocodiles that are lying on the banks of the water to be. And his safety is in the water as well. He feels quite vulnerable when he's lying out there, so he would want to ensure that if there is something approaching, something that he's worried about, he can get back to the water quite quickly. I've seen crocodiles kind of, have to scurry to the water quite quickly when elephants approach. Well, it seems like we've got another croc at Kruger Shalati, so let's head over to Kruger Shalati Sunrise and see what that croc's doing. Oh, wow. Again, difficult to know the size, but this to me looks like a monster crocodile. Very, very big, very dark. Wow. And you can see the tracks in the sand of where either it was lying earlier or perhaps another crocodile. You can see where the sand is nicely flattened there. And you can also see the tracks from where this particular crocodile's claws and feet have just scuffed the sand up a bit. This is an impressive looking crocodile. Wow. Look at those teeth. My goodness, you do not want that jaw to clamp around you. Eyes just ever so slightly open. Very, very impressive looking now, crocodile this. I think this is going to be the image that that we leave you with on this beautiful afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. It's been a pleasure chatting to you all, and I'll be back next week to chat again. But in the interim, I hope you have a wonderful afternoon further and enjoy this amazing crocodile.
Welcome to Safari Spotlight, an adventure to find Southern Africa's wildlife wonders. Join us on an enthralling virtual safari. Relax, learn, and be inspired. Discover gorgeous species, get to know iconic animal stars, and experience wonderful moments in conservation. If you'd like to plan an adventure and experience one of these wildlife locations, go over to Wild Earth Travel. The wild is calling.